Okay, well, thank you for coming, everyone, to our event. This event is titled Mind on the Job or Job on the Mind. They're interchangeable. But this event is basically just going to be centered around talking about different tips and skills that you can use to manage your mental health during the job search, because we all know it can be very daunting and stressful, and it's a lot for any student to have to take on. So we are here, and my name is Morgan Jones. I'm a fourth year majoring in business economics and political science, and I am joined by my other coworkers and peer consultants who are also going to introduce themselves.
All right. Hello, my name is Koyuki. I am a fourth year majoring in international studies and minoring in management. And thank you for y'all for coming.
Yeah, and my name is Chloe. I'm a third year, pronouns she, her, hers, and I'm majoring in sociology with a minor in management as well. And yeah.
Hi, my name is Sammy. I'm a second year economics major with possibly a minor in accounting or management. I haven't really decided. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I want to apologize if the audio is a bit noisy. I'm outside in the student center. It's pretty lively right now. Next slide, please. So we want to begin by asking everybody who here has experienced job searching or hunting before, whether this is for a part-time or a full-time position, even internship or volunteer work. Feel free to leave it in a chat or even just send a little reaction. Yeah, so seems like everybody, or mostly everybody, has had experience with job searching before. Next slide, please. So I think no matter how brief or how in-depth or how familiar you are with job hunting, we can all agree that job hunting is really hard. It's a difficult and lengthy process, and it's so much easier said than done to just go get a job. And especially when you put in so much time and effort into finding the perfect job that fits your needs and your location and your salary, etc. Most of the times you're not going to get the results that you're wanting or that you're expecting. And so it's a pretty stressful time where it's perfectly normal for you to feel frustrated or any of those negative emotions during this time. Next, please. So some of the implications of mental health we have provided here on the screen. Of course, these include the following, but they're not just limited to these. So some of these you may have already experienced during your own job search, or maybe these are things that you may come to eventually experience. So first we have feelings of anxiety and fear. Personally, for me, I think it's pretty scary to not really have that certainty of like a secure future, or to be able to like fully be financially independent. And then we have experiencing imposter syndrome, which I'm sure many of you have already heard of before, but essentially imposter syndrome is just like the name entails. It's when you begin to doubt your abilities and you feel like a fraud or an imposter. And this typically happens when you just don't feel like you're deserving of your high-ranking achievements. And so some people, I think, especially going to college, tend to experience imposter syndrome already. And it just so happens that when you're doing job search, these experiences can even be even more heightened. And then, of course, we have excessive stress. Pretty self-explanatory. I think it ties in a little bit with feelings of anxiety and fear. Again, personally, for me, it's just really scary just not knowing, in 2 years when I'm going to be looking for a full-time job, just where is that going to lead me? Like, is it actually going to happen? Am I going to be successful? And then, of course, hopelessness or depressed state of mind. Again, as you kind of put in so much effort and so much of your time just tailoring your resumes and cover letters to each and every job, and just waiting and waiting, and you don't really get a response back from companies, or if you do get back from them and it's rejections or it's just offers that you weren't really expecting or hoping for, it's easy to kind of, again, get frustrated and lose a little bit of that hope that you initially started out with. And then last but not least, lack of motivation or feeling burnt out. Again, kind of with mass applying to jobs, you can very quickly just tire yourself out. And, it's a very lengthy process where sometimes you don't even hear back from companies for months. And so it's just so easy to kind of lose sight of that initial passion that you started out with. And all of these are pretty common symptoms during a job search. And if you do experience these, just know that you're not alone. Next, please.
So now we're going to kind of talk about self-awareness and some indicators of poor mental health. So to think about what the definition of self-awareness is, right? So self-awareness involves being aware of different aspects of the self, including traits, behaviors, our responses, and feelings. Essentially, it's going to be a psychological state in which oneself becomes the focus of attention. So adopting self-awareness is one of the first steps to developing a positive self-image. So your self-image can kind of develop in a number of ways. So it could be through, especially through the interactions with important people in our lives. So these interactions could be with friends, family.
I think Morgan is experiencing some technical difficulties. We'll give her a minute. All right, so looks like Morgan has to reconnect really quickly, but we'll just continue to kind of wrap up the slide right here, but just building off of what Morgan was saying, adopting self-awareness is one of the first steps to developing a positive self-image, and self-awareness plays a critical role in how we understand ourselves and how we relate to others and in the world. And that's particularly crucial. Oh, Morgan's back. Hi, Morgan.
Sorry about that. Oh my
No,
God.
all good.
Oh yeah, I'm on campus too, so the Wi-Fi, like not on campus, but like in my campus apartment, so Wi-Fi sucks too. So I'll just kind of leave. I'll just go off of where I stopped. But your self-image is kind of like how you perceive your own behaviors, abilities, and unique characteristics. So, for example, beliefs such as like, I'm a good friend, I'm smart, I am capable, I am worthy of good things happening to me. These are all kind of part of your overall self-image. And self-awareness plays a crucial role in how we understand ourselves and how we relate to others in the world. But sometimes we can become, like overly self-aware. And this is where we kind of veer into what is known as like self-consciousness. And this is a heightened state of self-awareness that can leave you feeling really awkward and nervous in some instances. And this is completely okay, especially in the job search. I remember times where, you're trying to network, you're reaching out to people, you're in interviews even, and you might be feeling really self-conscious and and very self-aware of everything that you're doing. And this in this case, it's a lot more temporary. It's a moment where you're in the spotlight and you're having to like advocate for yourself, especially in like interviews and things, you know, and that can be very awkward to kind of like boast about yourself or talk about your achievements and things like that. So, but that being said, yeah, definitely following me too. That being said, you know, self-awareness, even though we can veer into being overly self-aware, having a strong sense of self-awareness is important, is going to be super important to building, you know, a positive self-image within yourself. And that is the best thing that you can have when going into the job search process, because, you know, no one can advocate for you better than yourself. So having that strong sense of self is super important. But we can go to the next slide. So then these are going to be some indicators of poor mental health. So the first one is going to be like poor concentration. So this could be anything. This could be like not being able to concentrate on your schoolwork, you know, not being able to concentrate on the job searching process, which can be very long, and sometimes just, you know, looking at the same positions over and over again, changing all of your things over and over again. It can be hard to concentrate on those things. And another indicator is going to be catastrophizing or intrusive thoughts. And, you know, it's always very common to have intrusive thoughts, like, especially for me, like when you're submitting applications and like Sammy was saying, not hearing back from recruiters sometimes can lead you to have very intrusive thoughts. But it's important to just, you know, remind yourself that there are probably so many people applying, and, you know, you are a capable applicant. It just, sometimes it's difficult for recruiters to get back to everyone in a timely manner. And that can be very stressful for students, obviously, but, you know, that's how the process is sometimes. So another indicator would be avoiding social activities and feeling less interested in day-to-day activities. You know, feeling overwhelmed by things, finding it difficult to control your emotions, sleeping more or less, worrying more, and finding it difficult to make decisions. So these are all indicators. There's a lot more indicators, and, you know, a simple like Google search and kind of like trying to like research more into this will probably help you to think more about what other indicators you might be like suffering from. But at the end of the day, noticing these different signs does not mean that you should make assumptions about what mental illness you might have. Instead, you should use them as a way of noticing when you should check in and start conversations with medical professionals, you know, so like a therapist, a psychologist, you know, your general doctor, just someone that you can trust, you know, because, you know, these issues are not things that you have to face alone. And even though mental health is a deeply personal journey, there are people and professionals that can help you develop healthy coping mechanisms. So just remind yourself of that and make those connections if you need to, and reach out if you need to, because especially UCI, there's lots of resources that you can reach out to get that help and kind of take those first steps. So yeah, that's this slide. You can go to the next slide.
Yeah, and I'll be taking it from here. And so now that we've talked a little bit about the implications and indicators of mental health, we do want to apply this to the job and internship search process to really tie this all together and see what mental health looks like in application to the search process specifically. And we've kind of sprinkled in some examples along the way with Morgan's segment and Sammy's segment as well. But these are some key moments to be especially mindful of your mental health as you're going about your job and internship searching process. And so first we have the application process itself, which includes building your resume, writing a cover letter, finding the actual positions that you're interested in, and hitting the submit button in the end. Though it's a universal experience, no one really talks about how time-consuming and how mentally exhausting this process becomes, especially when it turns into mass applying. It's really important to take this time to really recognize unhealthy habits. Are you aimlessly applying to jobs? Do you feel passionate about the jobs that you're looking at? Does it feel more or less like a chore? And if so, how can you redirect your energy? Next, we have LinkedIn. And so somewhere down the line, LinkedIn becomes a powerful platform for people who are looking for their next opportunity. But casual browsing may turn into a rabbit hole and pave way for some comparisons. And oftentimes people will start looking at their peers and spend hours questioning if their profile isn't as good because it doesn't look like someone else's platform. Recognize that even though LinkedIn is a professional platform, it is still a form of social media. And so being able to have that healthy separation of work and social media is particularly important when it comes to utilizing LinkedIn in your job/internship search process. And next, we have pre and post interviews. And without a doubt, this is a moment that prompts a lot of nerves both before and after. And so one thing that I'd like to say is don't let anxiety get the best of you and focus on the things that you can control. So preparing for the interview, sending thank you emails, knowing that know that making it to this part of the process is an accomplishment in itself. And lastly, I'm sure you have all heard this phrase, and if not, I'd like to share that rejection is redirection. And if there's one thing that I'd personally like you to take away from this workshop, it would be this. Rejections are never easy, and no one really wants to go through it as well, but it opens more doors than that you may not initially realize. And so with these moments in mind, keep in mind they're definitely not limited to just these moments as well. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Kayuki, who will be going over some things that you can do to take care of yourself.
All right, so what can I do, right? You have so much power than you think. All right, next slide. All right, so first you want to avoid isolation. So to interact, listen, and always stay curious. Job searching, it's an isolating experience, especially during the pandemic. Everything's remote. Like Chloe said, you go into LinkedIn rabbit hole and everything, every stress it seems like every stressor is like around you and you're surrounded by this hurricane and you're just alone. But if you realize that you are not, and because you're not, then you can have the courage to reach out to people or like listen to people talk about their careers. And then by doing that, you'll be surprised to hear about their career switches or their journey. And sometimes they have non-traditional paths and you realize you're not alone. You might not feel prepared. You might feel like you made a wrong choice, throughout your career in college but if you listen to their stories, you might find out that you might relate to them. And the DCP, or the Division of Career Pathways, right now they're hosting so many events, bringing in alumni from different fields of work. So I definitely recommend going. So don't wait to be inspired. All right. Also, I think this is probably the most important solution for me, especially, but you can prioritize your plan B than your plan A, right? Your plan A might be this, this ideal job that you want. But don't forget, plan B can, lead to your career to plan A, or that plan B can also change your mind, your career about plan A, and it inspires you to go a different path that you might enjoy. So choose a first job that's not going to drain you emotionally, or otherwise, so you'll have time to like pursue and understand what your next job will be. All right, next slide. Okay, so the third one is the 80-20 rule, all right? So 80% proactive efforts and 20% reactive efforts, right? So the 20% of your time should be used to work on your resume and apply for jobs, right? And at SARC, we can help you revise your resumes and cover letters. But and then 80% of your time, you should use that time to network and become familiar with like the career that you want to go to. And like I said before, networking and going to career events to be inspired. So this is a way to like organize your time and avoid that kind of isolation, avoid that kind of, rabbit hole that you want to go into. Yeah. All right, you heard this 1,000 times, but I'm gonna say it again. This is your 1,001 time now. SMART goals. All right. I don't know if you guys heard of SMART goals before, but it is extremely effective if you actually apply it to your life. So SMART, which is an acronym for being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So you can budget your time. So treat your job searching time as like a full-time job, because it is like we said earlier, it is exhausting. So like make the time, and recognizing that this time is like a full-time job is will create a healthy relationship. You will set boundaries for yourself, and then also creating a plan for rejection, that is also helpful. And then getting organized with our SARC's job/internship tracker. We have it on our website, but you can use Notion or Google Sheets, but they're incredibly helpful to, stay organized and see it visually, like your goals. So yeah, and you can be specific with them and like, yeah, but yeah, SMART goals are extremely helpful. All right. And also, honey, stop right there. Take a break, fear and anxiety aren't going to help your job hunting prospects. They're just going to, slow you down or make you, manifest these negative, energy, and focus on, like Chloe said before, focus on what you can control. That will, help you gain that energy back to be inspired and take on the job hunting or internship hunting. Like it should be an exciting process, and it could be overwhelming, but you should be excited for like the next step of your future. So yeah. All right, next slide.
Yeah, and it looks like we have a question in the chat. Oh, Morgan's got it. All right, so that kind of concludes the presentation portion of our workshop today, and we're going to head into a more informal segment where we're just going to have a conversation about mental health and the job search process. And during this time, we kind of want to provide an informational and comfortable space. So while we talk about some of our shared experiences, please feel free to chime in through the chat or ask us a few questions. We're more than happy to answer or share some of our own resources with you guys.